The reassignment notice shouldn't have had Kowalski's name on it. Sergeant Priya Devi noticed this the way she noticed most things, quietly, without announcement, while doing something else entirely. She was processing the morning's paperwork stack in the communications liaison office, 3rd floor, East Wing, the kind of administrative work that most guards treated as punishment, and she had always treated as information. 12 years of palace service had taught her that the paperwork was where the truth lived. Not in briefings, not in corridor conversations, not in the carefully worded announcements that came down from the upper floors. In the paperwork. She set the notice to one side, picked up her coffee, read it again. Kowalski, Sergeant Benedict Kowalski, 14 years service, commendations in 3 separate security reviews. A man whose personnel file was so clean it was almost boring, was being transferred to the outer perimeter rotation at Windsor, effective the following Monday. The reason cited was a disciplinary conversation held 3 weeks ago, referencing concerns about his conduct during an internal briefing. Devi had been in that briefing. She remembered it clearly because she had taken notes. She took notes at every briefing. It was a habit that had started in her 2nd year of service when she'd realized that memory was fallible and paperwork was permanent, and that in an institution as old and layered as this one, the person who controlled the record controlled the story. Kowalski had not been in that briefing. She was certain of this the way she was certain of things she had written down. She checked her notebook, a small, dark blue, spiral-bound thing she'd carried in her breast pocket for the last 4 years, replaced every 6 months when the pages filled up. The briefing was logged on page 31 of the current volume. Attendees listed by name in her own handwriting. Kowalski's name was not among them. She looked at the official notice again. His name was right there, in the system's clean printed font, attached to a meeting he had not attended. She set her coffee down, pulled the next file from the stack, did the rest of the morning's work. But she did it with the quiet, focused attention of someone who has just noticed a crack in a wall and is trying to determine whether it is cosmetic or structural. She found Kowalski at the end of his shift, in the staff room near the North Service entrance, still in uniform, working through what appeared to be a cheese sandwich with the methodical dedication of a man who hadn't eaten since before dawn. She sat across from him, put the reassignment notice on the table between them face up, didn't say anything. He looked at it, chewed, swallowed, read it more carefully. Disciplinary conversation, 3 weeks ago, that Tuesday. He picked up his sandwich again, put it down. What disciplinary conversation? That's what I'm trying to work out. He looked at her. Kowalski had a face that was difficult to read under normal circumstances, broad, steady, the kind of face that had learned to stay neutral in rooms where neutrality was professionally necessary. But something moved behind his eyes now. Not confusion exactly. Something closer to recognition. Like a man who has been trying to remember where he left something and has just realized he never had it to begin with. I wasn't in any disciplinary conversation 3 weeks ago. That Tuesday I was on the ceremonial detail, morning through afternoon. You can check the roster. She already had. She'd checked it before she sat down. She nodded, finished her coffee, thanked him, left before he could ask her what she was going to do about it because she didn't know yet. What she knew was that one wrong name in one document could be a clerical error. People mistyped. Systems had glitches. 12 years of paperwork had shown her enough honest mistakes to know what they looked like. This felt different. She went back to the communications office, pulled the 2 most recent reassignment notices before Kowalski's. Different guards, different dates, different reasons. Both cited meetings. She cross-referenced both against her notebook. The first meeting she had not attended, but she found the duty log for that day. The guard being reassigned had been posted to a protective detail across the building. She made a note, drew a small line connecting the guard's name to the detail location and the meeting location. The distances involved made simultaneous attendance impossible. The second meeting she had attended. She opened to the relevant page of her notebook, read down the list of names. The guard being reassigned was not on it. She sat with that for a moment. The room hummed around her, the ventilation system, the distant sound of the ceremonial clock marking the quarter hour, the particular quality of silence that a building this old had accumulated over centuries of people moving quietly through it. Then she picked up the internal request form, filled it out in her precise, even handwriting, submitted a query about her own post for the coming week, and went home. She was reassigned to Windsor Gate duty the following morning. The notice cited scheduling requirements, no other explanation. She packed her notebook, reported as ordered. Windsor Gate duty was, by the quiet consensus of the palace guard, the posting you got when someone above you wanted you somewhere you couldn't see anything important. It was not punishment in any formal sense. Nobody called it punishment. It was simply where you went when the administrative wind shifted against you, and you stood there in all weathers checking vehicles and being useful in the way that a filing cabinet is useful, present, functional, and completely out of the way. Davy found it useful in a different sense. She had time. She used it. Between vehicle checks, during her breaks, in the 40 minutes before her shift started when she arrived early and sat in the small staff room with her notebook and the printed duty roster she had begun, over the past several days, to collect quietly from the archive request system. A system nobody monitored because nobody thought there was anything worth monitoring in old duty rosters. She mapped it out. 6 reassignments across 8 months, each one citing a different meeting, a different conversation, a different minor infraction. Different guards, different reasons, different language in each notice, enough variation that no single notice looked like a copy of another. Whoever had written them had been careful about that. But she wasn't looking at individual notices. She was looking at the pattern. Each guard reassigned away from one location. Not dramatically, not all at once, one every 5 or 6 weeks, spaced just far enough apart that no single personnel officer would have seen more than one and thought anything of it. The operational wing of the Deputy Director of Household Operations, Gerald Fitch, 3rd floor administrative corridor, west side. She wrote his name in the margin of her notebook, then looked at it for a while, then drew a small box around it and kept working. Fitch had been at the palace for 30 years. He was the kind of institutional fixture that stopped being a person somewhere along the way and became part of the architecture, present in every major administrative decision for 3 decades, known by everyone, questioned by no one, his name appearing in documents the way load-bearing walls appear in old buildings, so fundamental to the structure that nobody thought to examine whether they were actually necessary or simply unmovable. She did not go to her supervisor again. She had a data point about what happened when she did that. She worked. She took notes. She waited for the thing that would make the pattern undeniable rather than merely suspicious, because suspicious was an opinion and undeniable was a fact, and she had learned a long time ago that opinions got you reassigned to Windsor and facts got you somewhere else entirely. The fact arrived on a Thursday, tucked inside the official communication logs she had requested through the formal archival system. The kind of request so mundane and procedurally appropriate that denying it would have raised more questions than fulfilling it. The logs were immaculate, properly formatted, time-stamped, cross-referenced, carrying the visual authority of official documentation, the kind of paperwork that, in most circumstances, closed questions rather than opened them. She could see why nobody had questioned them. They looked exactly like what they claimed to be. She read through them with her notebook open beside her, cross-referencing timestamps against the duty rosters she had collected. Meeting 7, 8 months ago. A conversation recorded as taking place on a Tuesday afternoon in the administrative conference room, 2nd floor, East Wing. Timestamped 14:30, duration logged as 40 minutes. She turned back 3 pages in her notebook to a different Tuesday, looked at what she had written. Full ceremonial lockdown. State visit preparation. All non-essential movement through interior corridors suspended from 13:00 to 17:00 by direct order of the head of household security. She had been there that day. She remembered the particular quality of the building's silence during lockdown, the way a place that was always somewhat hushed became something different, almost held, as though the walls themselves understood that something ceremonial was happening and were behaving accordingly. No informal administrative meeting had taken place at 14:30 that Tuesday, not in the East Wing conference room, not anywhere in the interior of the building. The suspension order was absolute, and she had seen it with her own eyes, had in fact helped coordinate the communications check that confirmed all non-essential personnel were at their designated positions. The log said the meeting happened. The building had been locked down. She wrote the discrepancy in her notebook. Date, time, log reference number, lockdown order reference number. Then she drew a single line underneath it. One false document was an error. A pattern of false documents built over 8 months, each one surgically precise, each one creating a paper trail for a conversation that had never occurred, each one moving a specific guard away from a specific corridor. That was architecture. Someone had built something. She requested 3 days of annual leave. It was approved without comment. She used the time to drive to 4 different posting locations and sit across from 4 different guards and show them, one at a time, the transcripts of conversations they had supposedly participated in. The first guard, a woman named Ferreira, transferred to an estate property in Scotland 8 months ago, read her transcript with the expression of someone reading a document in a language they almost but don't quite speak. The words were right. The register was right. The general shape of the content was the kind of thing that could plausibly have been said in the kind of meeting described. But the detail was wrong. The transcript referenced a complaint about Ferreira's conduct during a walkthrough of the 3rd floor administrative corridor. It described her standing near the window at the end of the corridor, visible to external cameras. Ferreira looked up. That corridor doesn't have a window at the end. It has a fire door, always has. The window's 2 doors down around the corner. Davy wrote it down. The second guard confirmed a different error. The third couldn't identify a specific factual mistake but said, with the quiet certainty of someone who knows their own voice, that the phrasing in the transcript wasn't how they talked. Not wrong exactly, just not theirs. The fourth guard, a man named Reeves, the most recent reassignment, currently stationed at an outer perimeter post 3 hours from London, read his transcript and then sat quietly for a moment and then said, "The meeting this describes happened on a Friday. I know that because it says the end-of-week briefing had just finished. I was on compassionate leave that Friday. My father had a stroke the previous Wednesday. I wasn't in the building." Davy closed her notebook. She drove back to London. Commander Harriet Osei ran palace security investigations from an office on the 2nd floor that was distinguished from its neighbors primarily by the quantity of paper in it and the quality of silence around it. She was a woman in her early 50s who had the particular stillness of someone who had spent decades learning that the most effective response to almost any situation was to say less than the other person expected. Davy had met her twice before, both times briefly. Both times Osei had given the impression of someone who was listening to more than the words being said. She laid the notebook on Osei's desk, then the printed duty rosters, then the official communication logs with her annotations in the margins, then her handwritten summary, 6 guards, 8 months, 1 corridor, 1 administrative figure whose name appeared in the oversight records for the wing that all 6 guards had been moved away from. Osei looked at everything, not quickly. She was the kind of person who read things the way they deserved to be read completely, without rushing toward the conclusion. When she finished, she looked up, How did you document the lockdown discrepancy? Original suspension order, cross-referenced against the communications check log I personally contributed to that day. Both are in the archive. Neither has been altered because neither is in the system that was being used to generate the falsified transcripts. They're in a separate record-keeping structure. Osai was quiet for a moment. The room's particular silence settled around both of them. How many of these 6 guards were on the protection rotation, covering the West Side administrative corridor? Davy had anticipated this question, which was why she had checked all 6. And that rotation covered what period? The 14 months preceding the internal operational audit of the Household Administration Division. Osai looked at the notebook again, not at any specific page, just at the object itself, as though it represented something she was calculating the weight of. An audit, Davy said, that Fitch's division passed without a single finding. She did not say the rest. She didn't need to. Osai was already there. If the guards who had been closest to that corridor during the audit period were systematically removed after the fact, some quietly, some with invented paper trails that made them look like conduct risks, then the audit's findings became easier to understand. Not because anything had been hidden during the audit itself, necessarily, but because the people best positioned to notice later whether the audit had captured everything were no longer in a position to notice anything. Osai closed the file, looked at Davy with an expression that was not warm but was, in some precise way, respectful. Leave this with me. Gerald Fitch arrived at the internal investigation panel 3 weeks later with the composure of a man who has never seriously considered the possibility that an institution he has occupied for 30 years could turn around and look at him clearly. He was 61. He wore his seniority the way certain people wore expensive suits, as though it were a material fact about the world rather than something that could be taken off. His personnel file was a document of accumulated institutional trust, commendations, appointments, a long, smooth record of being the person other people relied on to know how things worked. He had responses for everything. The reassignments were legitimate administrative decisions made within his authority. The documentation was generated through the standard communication log system, which he had access to as deputy director and had used in accordance with established procedure. Each guard cited had exhibited conduct that warranted review. He could speak to each case individually if required. The panel listened, asked questions, received answers. Then the panel chair placed Davy's notebook on the table. Not the official logs, not the printed rosters. The notebook, small, dark blue, spiral-bound. The cover worn soft from 4 years of being carried in a breast pocket and taken out and put back again more times than anyone had counted. This is Sergeant Davy's personal duty log, handwritten, contemporaneous, not part of any digital system, covering the same period as the communication logs in question. Fitch looked at the notebook. Something in his expression recalibrated, not visibly, not dramatically. But Davy, watching from her seat against the wall, saw the moment he understood what he was looking at. Not evidence in the system, evidence outside it. The one kind he hadn't planned for. The panel chair opened the notebook to the page for the Tuesday of the lockdown. Read aloud the entry. The date, the time, the suspension order, the communications check, her own name as participating officer. Then read aloud the timestamp from the communication log, claiming a meeting had taken place at 14:30 in the East Wing conference room on that same Tuesday. Mr. Fitch, can you explain this discrepancy? It was not a question in tone. It was the kind of sentence that creates a space and waits. Fitch looked at the notebook, then at the log printout beside it, then at the panel chair. There may have been an error in the system's timestamp recording. The panel chair turned to the next flagged page, the Ferreira transcript. Read aloud the description of the window at the end of the third floor west corridor. Paused. There is no window at the end of that corridor. Facilities records confirm it has not had a window in that location in over 20 years. Can you explain how a contemporaneous record of a meeting in that corridor references a window that does not exist? Fitch said nothing. The panel chair turned to the next page. Reeves, the Friday meeting, the compassionate leave documentation, the stroke, the absence record signed and timestamped by the personnel office. Nothing. Not dramatic nothing. Not the nothing of someone who has decided to stop cooperating. The nothing of someone who has run out of architecture to stand inside. 30 years of institutional authority does not disappear in a moment. But it becomes, in a moment, very clearly visible as the thing it always was weight that someone else had agreed to recognize, and which stops meaning anything the moment that agreement is withdrawn. The panel chair closed the notebook. Set it aside carefully, the way you set aside something that has done the work it was brought to do. The session was suspended, pending further review. Davy walked out of the room, down the corridor, out through the side entrance into the courtyard where the light was doing something clean and specific with the old stonework. She stood there for a moment, put her hand against the outside of her breast pocket, felt the shape of the notebook through the fabric, put it down, went back inside. The announcement came 6 weeks later. Deputy Director Gerald Fitch would be retiring, effective immediately, following a career of distinguished service to the household. The palace wished him well. No further statement would be issued. 4 of the 6 reassigned guards received new posting orders within the month. The language cited administrative rebalancing. Nobody used the word reinstated. The communication log system was quietly referred to an external audit and then rebuilt from the ground up under a new oversight structure. An internal memo, circulated to a list of 17 people, of whom perhaps 12 would read it carefully, noted that Sergeant Priya Devi had demonstrated exceptional diligence in identifying systemic irregularities and recommending procedural improvements. It was filed. The building continued. Reeves was back at his original post within 3 weeks. Ferreira returned from Scotland. Kowalski received his new posting order on a Wednesday, and by the following Monday was back in the corridors. He had worked for 14 years, as though the 8 months away had been a long weekend that nobody needed to discuss. Davy went back to the communications liaison office, 3rd floor, East Wing. The morning paperwork stack, the particular quality of a building that was always somewhat hushed. She started a new notebook. The cover was the same dark blue. The handwriting was the same. She wrote the date on the first page, her posting location, and the names of everyone present at the morning briefing. And she did this with the same careful attention she had given to every page of every notebook she had carried for the past 4 years, because the habit was not about any single thing she had written down. It was about the practice, the daily insistence that what happened was real and could be verified and deserved to be recorded by someone who had been there. 6 months after the investigation closed, she was coming off a morning shift when Kowalski found her in the corridor outside the staff room. He was in civilian clothes, which meant he was coming in rather than going out, starting his shift later in the day. He was carrying a bag from a bakery near Victoria Station, which meant he had come from somewhere that morning rather than straight from home. He had the look of someone who had been up since early and had found it worthwhile. He stopped when he saw her. "My daughter started a new job this week," he said. She looked at him. "Marketing firm, Central London. She's been working toward it for 2 years." He paused. "I was almost in Edinburgh when she got the offer. Almost wasn't there for the call." Davy said, "That's good work for her." He looked at her for a moment, nodded once, the way people nod when words have reached the limit of what they can do accurately. Then he went inside. She stood in the corridor for a moment. The building hummed around her, ventilation, distant footsteps, the clock marking the hour with the measured certainty of something that had been marking hours in this place longer than anyone alive could remember. She put her hand against the outside of her breast pocket, felt the notebook there, took it out, uncapped her pen, wrote the date and the time in a single line, Kowalski back on rotation, recapped the pen, put the notebook back. Went to work. The duty roster for that week, if you looked at it, showed nothing unusual. Names in their correct columns, postings as assigned, the ordinary machinery of a large institution running as it was supposed to run. In the margin of the copy that Davy kept in her own files, there was a small handwritten correction, a posting time adjusted by 30 minutes to reflect an actual shift change that the system had logged incorrectly. Small, precise, in her handwriting. The kind of thing nobody would ever look at twice. She had written it there because it was true, and because true things deserved to be written down by someone who had been present to see them, and because the record was only as reliable as the people who were willing to keep it honestly. She had learned that at Windsor Gate, standing in all weathers with nothing to do but think. It had been worth the posting,